Greetings and welcome to Legacies of Wavryn, Lore of the Endelment. This will be chapter 19 of this reading. I woke to find myself once again lying on my back in the realm of gods. However, it was quite different from the last time. When I opened my eyes, I saw a Tyrian purple sky above me, with a light cover of smoky black clouds. There was also a very fresh, clean smell of nature, much more pure and relaxing than anything in the realm of mortals. I moved to sit up and look around to see that I was in a meadow-like area, with a few large and small hills nearby and very tall white mountains out in the distance. The grass in the area was colored aqua, and the snow that covered the tops of the mountains in the distance was dark blue. I also noticed that there was a very large blackwood fruit tree. It had red leaves and stood about 3 stories tall, about 20 feet behind me. The tree had light pink fruit that hung all around its branches, which looked like grape-sized watermelons with dark pink stripes that faded away at the ends. The whole place just looked loony to me. It felt like I was on drugs. I looked around once again, confused, while I whispered, "What the?" A long, loud whistle echoed throughout the meadow, getting me to turn towards one of the small hills to my right. There, Khalida was lying down on an open area of a hill that was covered in large, multicolored roses, some even being pitch black or plain grass green. When I noticed the wolf, she started waving her large, fluffy tail around, almost as if signaling to call me over. I stood up and continued to look around as I walked over to Khalida, noticing that there was a calm, light breeze. The wind picked up bits of the grass off the ground and lifted it up slightly, where they became small, soft snowflakes that had a refreshing coolness when they touched your skin. As I walked up the hill, I found that the roses were folding themselves in and reverting into the ground when I came to place my feet down. Then, as I removed my feet, the roses would grow back, completely unchanged. Once I stepped into the open patch and sat down next to Khalida's right side, facing the weird tree, I asked, "What's up with this place?" The wolf giggled, then she looked over at the tree and asked, "This is the realm of gods. It's always been like this." "Not the last 2 times I came here." Khalida looked down at the lavender rose, with bright, shining white around the edges and a matte black stem, while she said, "Yeah, that's because it wasn't real those times. That's not important right now." She then looked back at me and said, "You're still not completely here, so you don't have much time." "Why am I back?" She gave a big sigh, then turned to grab the rose she had gazed at, and plucked it from its stem, holding it in her left front paw. She then started gently pulling away each petal with her right and flicking it aside. Every petal that she removed would fly up into the air and then dissolve as the breeze took it away, while the stem grew back another rose in a different color. After Khalida had removed all of the petals from the first rose, she crushed the core in her paw, then placed her paws down as she looked over at me. She wrapped her tail around my back for some reason and said, "Ray, not to sound obvious, but Shadow is truly evil, in every little way. He wishes for nothing to exist except total darkness. And when he's summoned, he won't stop till everything that he sees is completely destroyed. When you summoned him..." She looked away from me to stare down at the new rose, dark cyan, and had 2 jagged lines through the center of each petal that was colored black, with sparkles through each line. It broke my heart a little, seeing that you would go to such lengths just to stop your little brother. I looked away to stare down at another oddly colored flower that was in front of me, as I said, "There was nothing I could do. Nothing I could have done to stop my brother or summon any other." Khalida quickly looked back over at me confused, while I continued, "I don't want to kill him. He's my little brother, and I knew that if I had actually tried to stop him, I would have. I just hoped that Shadow would listen to reason. Kalita sighed as she turned back to the new rose, then plucked it to start picking off the petals again, and said, "Sometimes, you just gotta let things go, Ray. Even if it may damage you in the end, your brothers are lost, and can't be brought back." I looked back over at the wolf and said, "You said that you were upset I summoned Shadow. Why is that exactly?" She plucked a couple petals, then replied, "Though I believe in you, I don't think you should have called for him." She pulled 4 more petals away, then crushed the rest of the rose in her left paw into pieces. A new metallic lime green rose with a carrot orange edging then grew back quickly, while Kalita put her paws on the ground again around the rose and continued, "There's a horrible truth to that canine's existence." Kalita explained that, unlike normal gods that are conjured by the creator itself, Shadow was born from the pure hatred between Kexans and Kexins after the rise of greed in power. When Abyss brewed to create Shadow, bringing him first into the realm of mortals, he nearly destroyed Bodor. However, he was stopped by one of my ancestors, Lord Callius Shero. Callius absorbed Shadow and transformed him into an evil power, simply called Darkness. Then, using his own true powers, Callius sacrificed himself to send the darkness away and banished it from the mortal realm. Thus, Light herself and her powers were born. She was to protect those that wished for peace and wished to fight against her brother's darkness. With that sacrifice, the forever war began between Illum and Darkness. Afterwards, Kalita told me why Shadow's powers could kill my race without completely obliteration of our bodies. Though he was not an honorary god, the fox still had godly powers. These powers have a special fix to them that neutralize mortal regeneration. It also could slowly dissolve a mortal's physical appearance. Kalita continued to stare at the new rose in front of her, while she gently pet it with her left front paw and said, "Such a beautiful rose." Realizing what I had done to dishonor my heritage, I looked over to my right, depressed, to see the end half of the wolf's tail on my right side. I lightly stroked it with my right hand as I said, "That means..." "Yes, Ray," she said, reading my mind while she looked back up at me. "You could lose everything, even your beautiful and loving wife, Serena." I chuckled at that, then calmly said, "Your fur is really soft." "Excuse me." My mind was on several things, though Kalita was right. I had lost one brother, and I felt I was to lose another. Maybe all of them. I just couldn't think about anything else at the time. It was sad to think that my family was being ripped apart and would possibly die, out of all the things we had gone through. It was unbelievable to me. There could be nothing left of my family. Not even Serena. On top of losing Grandpa, my mother, Maria Shero, died a year after Salus was born. No one could figure out who or what killed Mother. It was just believed that a Kexin murdered her. However, I thought otherwise. I had no idea why, but I felt it wasn't some random Kexin. It had to have been Father. After a few minutes of silence, I looked back out towards the tree, still petting Kalita's tail, as I said, "You know, if I had just one more day, my final day with Serena..." "Enough, Endelment," Kalita barked as she looked over at me. "I'm tired of this. There's no reason to hold you back anymore. You have the power to stop this. I know you do." Just then, Koju appeared to my right next to his sister's tail. His body faded in with a breeze from my right as he faced out towards the mountains past the tree, with his head down slightly and his eyes closed. The moment he appeared, the wolf calmly said, "Sis, stop yourself now before you and I have to talk." "Come on, brother," Kalita said as she looked over at her brother. "Who cares if he knows?" "I do," he replied as he turned his head to gaze with an angry expression, opening his eyes halfway. He then continued, "He's immortal. They live to find out what life itself has in store for them, so they may do with it as they please, not to be told by a god what is to happen. Besides, not even we are sure of his greatness, so don't—" "Fuck you, Koju," she barked, abruptly standing as she turned towards her brother. In the same motion, she flung her tail up to curl it over her and have the tip just barely touch her mid-back. Then she continued, "Things need to change even for gods. You yourself believe in that as much as I once did, so don't sit there and be a hypocritical jackass." Koju just turned his head away and gave an irritated grunt, trying to ignore his sister as she calmed down and said, "It's time for a change, brother. They're not going to make it without us." I didn't understand what it was the wolves were barking about, but I still felt the emotions between them. In the moment of silence they had, I went to ponder about something that had to do with shadow and light, the forces between darkness and illume. As I gathered my theory, I looked over at Koju and said, "Sorry if I caused any trouble here, Lord Koju." The wolf didn't even have the smallest reaction to what I had to say, just gazed out at the mountains. So instead, without even trying to talk to him, I just stood up and continued, "I may be immortal, but no matter what you say, I dictate my life and how I live it, regardless of what you know or what you yourself can do." I then looked over at Kalita and said, "Therefore, I'll show you how I, and only I, no one else, can truly stop this madness." Kalita gave me a light smile as she nodded her head slightly, then looked back at her brother with a sad expression and said, "Goodbye, Koju." This concludes the reading of Chapter 19. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you like what you've seen and heard, there will be a link to my physical works in the description below. With that being said, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again next week, reading Chapter 20.